Well, we're live and in very colorful hoodies, by the way. You'll see Joe's face come up in a second. But I'm in my orange, which is orange, and Joe is in a very fashionable blue on
Yeah,
this Monday, the 24th of February.
wearing my Metro shirt or sweatshirt or whatever. Back in the day, News 12, the traffic and weather channel one time at the very beginning was known as the Metro Traffic and Weather Channel, and they gave all the people who participated sweatshirts, and so I still have mine after all of these years. And
Wow, he hasn't worn out yet.
no, it has not.
Whoops, you disappeared. I'm sorry, that's my fault. Hang on one second. We
That's all
ha-
right.
we must have your lovely face up on the screen. So I'm just trying to I'm doing a little maneuvering while we're talking. Come on, you silly screen, you. Okay. All right. So, um, I figured,
Oh, you
welcome everybody tonight.
impetuous person!
Welcome to the Joe and Joe. Oh, you put me out of focus. You hit me so hard. Oh, whoa. Boy, that's weird. I can't. The camera's now out of focus. There we go. So welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Monday, February 24th. It was a beautiful weekend, very spring-like. But I thought we'd play Briller Jeopardy at the top of the show today. Okay.
Okay, well, the chairman actually gave me an interesting statistical piece of information earlier on today, but you may go unless it happens to be the same question.
Okay. What do these four cities have in common? Caribou, Maine, uh, Portland, Maine, Rochester, New York, Burlington, Vermont.
The first thing that pops into my head is four cities that have had more snow than New York City has, but that's an
That's
easy.
without giving.
That's a given. Um, Gee, I four cities that are actually running below in their normal snow totals.
Yeah, um, actually, those are the only four major cities that are running
Above
average,
above average.
above
Okay,
average for the winter.
for the northeastern United
That's
States.
correct. I mean, I'm sure we probably there's more. I mean, if we uh, go down to the smaller towns and everything else, but basically you could see where the belt is. Oddly enough, Syracuse, which is the snow capital of the Northeast, is running about 2 feet below normal, but their average is over 100 inches.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically one sneeze and there'll be one sneeze and the right wind coming in off the lake, and you could just make an inch of snow just from doing that. Okay, so now here here we're gonna do a little Cioffi Jeopardy here. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. Name the four actors that substituted for Raymond Burr and Perry Mason. All
Well, Betty Davis was one of them,
right, Betty Davis was one.
but the other three, I
Well,
would
we
not.
talked about one last week
Right,
from the day the Earth stood still.
right. Xavier Cugat,
No, 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 Michael Rene.
Michael Redding, yeah.
Right. Um, Here's one that I remember seeing it now, but I got to see it again to refresh my memory. Hugh O'Brien.
Really, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And last but not least, a man who was nominated 5 times for an Academy Award and never won. And in most of those movies, he played opposite Greer Garson.
Oh, there's a name from the past.
Okay.
Yeah,
His last name has an Avery theme to it.
an Avery theme. Oh,
Not a duck, but a.
Joe, I'm drawing a blank. This is what happens when you get to
Okay,
the right.
I'll give you this hint, and if you they used to crap on us in the parking lot at FiOS.
Walter Pigeon.
Walter Pigeon, yes. See the things that you and they really used to do that. And
Right.
they had remember when they had to put the fake eagle sounds in there to scare them away.
Yes, I remember that. It never worked.
Who is that? Is that Dr. Bombay?
I don't know who it is.
Oh, it could be. It could be important. You might want to answer it.
My wife answered it before I had a chance to see who it is on the screen.
Oh, okay.
How about if
Uh,
I put it on speaker and say,
no.
"Hey, you're live right now on."
Well, if it's a bill collector. So, beautiful weekend, particularly yesterday and especially today. We broke 60 in a lot of spots.
Right.
Even we kind of thought that the areas actually, as you went north, had stood a better chance of breaking 60 today than areas to the south, and indeed they did. Got to 63 in New York City. Only even out by me, it made it into the mid 50s um, before any kind of sea breeze took over. So uh, it felt very nice.
Well,
And
I can tell you, 151 this afternoon here in beautiful downtown Putnam Valley, we had 61 degrees. And it's interesting to point out, Joe, how many people may remember this? I posted this on Facebook. 5 years ago today, we were in the midst of a real dose of frigid weather. We had
yep,
0 degrees at Central Park, which was not a record. The record was 1 degree below zero set back in 1873. But there were a number of places that were below zero, north and west of New York. In fact, Sussex, New Jersey, got down to 15 degrees below zero on this
wow.
day in 2015. And there
Yeah,
were a number
there
of
was a lot of snow, a lot of snow cover. There was a lot of snow cover, and areas in pine barrens really radiated like mad. I think if my memory serves me correctly, if you look even through the first week of March in that area down in South Jersey, there were a number of days where temperatures got down between -5 and -10, which was kind of odd for the early part of March. You start to lose that the below zeros on the records. But yeah, that was very cold, and I think that was probably the last February that we had a I got to double check this, but that may have been the last February that we actually had below average temperatures.
Well, the at Westchester County Airport, it was the fifth or sixth consecutive day of record temperatures, and it was also this day, on this day in 2015 at White Plains or Westchester Airport, 5 below zero, the coldest temperature that they had going back to January 26, 1994.
Wow.
So this was a very cold day, and here we are 5 years later, basking in temperatures that, again, this afternoon were in the high 50s and low 60s in just about all of the tri-state metropolitan area.
And we're 5 years older, and you know what? It works for me to be up close to 60
Yeah.
rather than being down at 6. Excuse me, at 6. So the weather's picking up a little bit, ever so slightly. And then looking at the watches and warnings map, we actually have Chicago and Detroit under winter storm watches, along with the areas on the southern side of Lake Michigan. Half the state of Michigan is under a winter storm watch. Northern Illinois, most of northern Illinois under a winter storm watch. Winter weather advisories in northeastern Missouri, and then a whole slew of winter weather advisories up from West Kansas, northward through South and North Dakota, a few counties in Wyoming and in Montana, and in South Dakota under winter storm warnings. Ruthless Goat, who is north of Denver in Loveland, Colorado, he posted this morning about the fact that he had a really intense snow squall go through where he was, picked up 2 inches of snow in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
That must have been something to see. And there are a scattering of winter weather advisories still up for the state of Colorado. We have a pretty complex weather system that is swinging eastward, and it's going to be impacting weather here in the form of mostly rain for the coastal areas in the urban corridor from Washington on up to Boston. But the clouds now, of course, are starting to roll in, and you're seeing this. There's this subtropical jet that runs across from off the coast of Mexico, southern tip of Baja California, running through the Western Gulf, and then kind of sweeping northward through the Ohio Valley. And you can see the upper air on the satellite kind of looping along, excuse me, moving through Missouri and Arkansas. So that's this whole mess that's coming into the east. Looks like, Joe, we're going to get 1 week low that's going to die out in the Ohio Valley, reform to our south. And, much as you've been saying the last couple of days, with thinking that maybe temperatures tomorrow will be in the 40s just about everywhere. I think that is pretty much supported by the fact that we're going to get into a bit of a raw flow. The only thing is tomorrow, if the rain doesn't get in here soon enough, or if the atmosphere doesn't saturate soon enough, I can envision a situation where it goes above 50 early in the day, say in the morning. And then as soon as it starts raining, the temperatures will just fall back down into the low and mid 40s in many places and just sit there for the rest of the way.
Well, you know what, Joe? It is going to go down tomorrow, Tuesday, the 25th of February, 2020. I predict it is going to go down in the record book as a high temperature of at or above 50 because we've got 4.5 hours to go before midnight, and where the temperatures are right now, I doubt very much if it's going to get to below 50 between now and midnight tonight at Central Park. So it will go down in the record books at or above 50, even though you and I both know that by midday and afternoon tomorrow,
Yeah.
it's be more like the 40s.
Yeah. So I mean, but the bottom line is you were correct in your observation. For most people, even though the daytime high will probably be at midnight, for most people, when they look at regards to how they view the high psychologically, it's usually whatever the high temperature is during the daytime hours. So if it's around 50 tomorrow morning and then it drops through the 40s, it's still, for the most part, I think for most of the day tomorrow, it'll have that raw-ish feel to it. And then we've got, the upper support with this is still back to the west. So that's going to swing around, and we're going to get a second low that's going to develop on Wednesday. That looks to bring around, I don't think the rain from this first batch is going to be anything too really to write home about. It's going to, it's not going to be anything out of the ordinary, but I think we might get a little bit of heavier rain here Wednesday night when that low goes by just to our west and the cold front swings up and swings through. I think there might be a Wednesday night kind of a narrow band of maybe some heavier showers that'll roll by, and that's where the bulk of the precip will fall.
Now, do you think there'll be any convection? I've seen a few forecasts that are suggesting that we may get some rumbles of thunder later Wednesday or Wednesday. That didn't really pop into my mind in looking at the Wednesday night scenario, but you think there might be enough lift and
you know what I thought it might be possible looking at I thought it might be possible that we could see that happen if hang on one second. Somebody is misbehaving on the chat board.
Uh-oh.
I'll wait for the message to pop up. So, yeah, I think it's possible. That's a pretty good arm with a deepening low. Point of occlusion is going to go close by. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we get a rumble or two of thunder with that. And then I think behind it, by the way, I think we could wind up seeing a reasonable lake effect event in upstate New York and in western Pennsylvania. Hang on one second. Let me just type this message to Timothy Veltman. Get rid of her. Okay, so I'm sorry. Back. I don't know. I'm in a mood.
Getting it's not on the chat board, so I'm assuming you're getting a message direct.
Yeah, no, I got my Facebook page up on my other screen, so I'm able to see it. So I'm thinking Thursday. I'm thinking that Thursday we're going to get, for upstate New York, Northwest PA, into Ohio, maybe even down into parts of West Virginia, that there might be, the Weather Service has only got basically about 1 to 3, 1 to 4 inches over there, but I'm wondering whether behind that low with the wind coming in off the unfrozen lakes, that we could see some, some of the usual suspect snow belt areas out in western PA getting some heavier snows, as well as in western New York. And in terms of at least through Thursday evening, once again, north of I-90 in northern New York, up in the Adirondacks, and then you go across into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, the usual spots will looks like about a 6 to maybe, let's say a 3 to 6, 4 to 8 average snowfall, with a few pockets a little bit higher. So New England will do okay, and I think Chicago. I think it'll be a 3 to 6, 4 to 8 snowfall for where we have these winter storm watches up for Illinois, over to Chicago, and in southern Michigan to Detroit. The Weather Service has got 8 for Detroit, 8 for Grand Rapids, 8 for Chicago, and then amounts a little bit lower south and west of Chicago. St. Louis is just kind of on the southern edge of all of this, and in northwest Missouri, 1 to 4 inches there. Northern Illinois, 2 to 4, 3 to 5, and then it kind of tails off as you get into southern Wisconsin. It's just sort of a very narrow band that we're looking at here. And out in the west, where we have those scattering of winter weather advisories and a couple of winter storm warnings up, it's mostly 1 to 4 inch snowfalls, but they're right along I-90 in western South Dakota. There must be some sort of local effect going on here, because it's sitting literally over I-90 in the north as you cross from South Dakota into Wyoming. There's this little bubble of 18-inch plus snows. So that's got to be some kind of something that has to do with the local topography out there. And not much else going on as you go up into the Northern Rockies, just sort of ordinary. The Southwest is quiet for a change. A little bit of snow, patchy snow, extends down into northern New Mexico and into parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, and that really is about it. So a little bit of snowy weather coming into the Great Lakes and the interior Northeast, pretty much in the same places in the Northeast where they've been seeing snow all winter long.
Right, and Chicago has probably, they've probably been looking at Philadelphia and here in New York, for example, and scratching their heads and saying, like, what are they doing wrong, or what are they doing right that we're doing wrong? Because they've had their fair share, or maybe not as much as they would in a typical winter, but they've had a few good snowfalls this
Yeah.
winter season. Case in point, what's about to happen to them with 4, I think 8 might be pushing the limit or pushing the envelope. But Joe, we haven't even been able to get close to that right here in the New York area, and according to weathertrends360.com, the 1/3 of an inch that they have gotten in Philadelphia is the second least snowiest or snowless winter in the city of brotherly love. They did not mention what the first was, but come on, I mean, like a third of an inch. That's only the second least snowiest winter in Philadelphia. Believe it or not.
Oh God, the world we live in this year, huh?
Yep.
So here's something. I'm gonna bring the maps off and in a second. So give your ideas of this. The chairman asked, because the Great Lakes are basically ice free, would that mean that we will probably have a very mild early spring, since the sun doesn't have to work on any ice cover?
I
And
don't
I don't. My feeling is it doesn't have any impact.
I don't think so either. I don't think there's a correlation. Is there a correlation? I don't.
I don't know. That's not something I've ever really looked at as far as a possible correlation is concerned. I would think that the fact that there is no ice is really more of a reflection of whatever weather happens to be going on at the time. So it can't. It's not inconceivable to me that you could have unfrozen, relatively unfrozen lakes, and then you kind of go into a weather pattern that's colder than normal temperature wise for March and April. In other words, the fact that the lakes are frozen or not really doesn't have any impact on what kind of air masses and what kind of weather pattern that you have that maybe brings down colder air.
Well, I guess if they're wide open, I mean certainly the eastern Great Lakes are probably wide open. My thought is that that makes it a lot easier for uh, lake effect events, which might normally not happen at this
Yeah,
time of the year.
that's exactly. So, from that standpoint, yeah, if if under certain conditions, you probably could wind up with, snowier, uh, snowier areas in and around the lakes because of the fact that they're unfrozen
Right.
and not really having a seasonal impact. Maybe it has an impact on the water temperatures with regards to local sea breezes, but I don't think it's something that you can, sort of point to and say, okay, because you know what, even when they're frozen, when the sun angle gets high enough and you start to get into late March or mid to late March and early April, that ice disappears in a hurry.
Right. Right. Well, two things I can offer to the snow lovers out there, and one of them is courtesy of the chairman, Mr. Briller. First thing is that if you're looking ahead now to the upcoming month of March, in the last 5 years, total now, cumulative, in the last 5 years, we have seen over 50 inches of snow fall in the month of March, an average of just over 10 inches per year. So March has been a very snowy month, relatively speaking, much more than normal
Right.
over the last 5 years. The other thing is, if you want to just completely toss everything into the garbage pail for the rest of this winter season, Mr. Briller pointed out to me this morning that there has never been in New York City weather history over the last 150 some odd years, there has never been 2 consecutive years where we have seen snowfall less than double digits at Central Park. So we've only had 4.8 inches, and if we end up with less than 10 this year, according to Scott Briller, we have never had 2 consecutive years like that.
Yeah, but last year wasn't just single digits
Right, last year
for the
was
season. Yeah, last year was not single digits.
right, but this year so far we have
So
four.
you're saying that it would be highly unlikely to have another single digit year next year.
Right, it has never happened before, according to Scott Briller. So maybe
Really?
maybe next year we'll get more than 10 inches.
Well, I bet you if you look at the late '90s, though, they were like if they weren't single digits, they were very low double digits on
Okay,
back-to-back years. But if 10 is your cutoff, then
right.
okay. So there hasn't been two back. So snow lovers can take solace uh, in the fact that the odds of having a repeat performance are kind of low. Doesn't mean it can't be a first time. It's sort of like when the stock market drops 1,000 points and then rallies back 100, and
Yeah,
you think rallies are where you find them.
right.
So that's just where the
Well,
way it is.
during the recession, didn't we have a case where it dropped something like something ridiculous, like 1,000, and then a few days later it went up like 800 points? The same
Yeah,
thing happened.
yeah. Well,
So
that's what happens. You get these big downdrafts. Sort of like when you well you bounce you call they call it a dead cat bounce,
okay,
which of course I'm sure will lead to hordes of protesters now saying that I'm supportive of bouncing dead cats.
right,
But the whole concept of when you drop something from a high point, no matter how far it drops, when it hits bottom, it does bounce up. It doesn't necessarily, it's not going to bounce all the, nowhere near back to where the top was, but it does bounce. So, you're basically trying to catch a falling knife, and hoping that you don't get stabbed by it. So,
mhm,
anyhow, uh, so we are, you know, even though the fat lady, in my opinion, has sung, we of course are always, looking around to seeing, is there something that appears in the long range pattern as far as, you know, I don't know how else to describe it, but at least giving you a general cheap thrill at this stage of the game. And from what I'm seeing, Joe, on the upper air, uh, it just still pretty much remains hopeless. I mean, if you look, anytime there's a trough in the East, it just gets kicked right out because you've got this fire hose, basically this fire hose in the Atlantic. And I got the upper air out a week from now, so that's March 3rd, and just following the flow. I mean, it's really everything is going west to east here. Across the Pacific. Come on, let me get a nice blue color here. But everything is basically going from west to east across the Pacific and the Atlantic, not just in the southern latitudes, but in the northern latitudes. So all your cold air is, guess where it is, where it's been all winter, locked up in the polar regions. You know what's frustrating to me out of all of this is really the fact that since January, we've been dealing with models that have just continually tried to show something changing in the longer range, and it never happens. It shows it for a few days, and then it reverts right back to this locked up polar vortex scenario. Now it's dropping a deep trough in off the west coast, and a deep trough out east of 60, and you basically have ridging along the east coast in the longer range. You can't. This was a winter where you could not win, no matter what happened. You could not win.
Right. There are some people out there who've been waiting for the big change since mid or late December, looking at the maps going out beyond 10 days, and it simply has not come to pass.
Nope.
It has not been that kind of a year for any of the models, including the King, the European, if any of you still consider the European King.
The Pacific North America index goes sharply negative in the longer range, and that's reflecting this deep trough that's out in the west. I think that what that is going to mean is maybe once we get past March 1st or 2nd, we're going to start to see some severe weather outbreaks, I think, across uh, the lower Mississippi Valley, the Gulf states, and in the plain states, in the plains. Whenever you have that Pacific North America index, that deep trough that's out in the west and more of a ridge in the east, it's a ripe scenario for severe weather. It also might mean, I think, possibly some late season snows for the western part of the United States, depending on how these troughs kind of drop in. Certainly, the areas from the Rockies west stand a much better chance of seeing some late season snowfalls than the east. The east may get the northeast is going to get its shot this weekend with this upper trough that's swinging through. But the shot of cold air that comes in for the end of the week and the weekend will be just kind of like what we just went through. And then once that trough lifts out, we're done. By the way, I thought that maybe because of the way the upper trough kind of swings through here Thursday night and Friday, that maybe we get a snow shower or two in a few spots. Are you game with that?
Well, I think that if we winds pick up substantially, and there's a chance we could see that happen during the day on Thursday, that maybe a lake effect snow shower or flurry might actually get blown all the way down into our neck of the woods. If that happens, it would have to happen, I think, during the afternoon hours, although the models have been saying that once we get into midday and afternoon on Thursday, that pretty much is going to spell mostly clear or mostly
Yeah.
sunny conditions.
But
So,
it may come on Friday because the first trough lifts out Thursday morning, the upper
right.
low, and then there's an arm that comes around during Friday and Friday night. So I'm wondering whether maybe during the day Friday that we might see something bubble up with that very cold pool of air that moves overhead. And of course, after that, the whole trough lifts out, and then we could say goodbye, and we get a nice ridge to build into the east for the middle part of next week. And an upper low. Here's where I'm thinking, for next week, maybe along about Tuesday into Wednesday, we could see some severe weather in parts of the southern and central plains, and then gradually lifting up further north through the middle Mississippi Valley. Of course, we'll be protected here, but with all this troughing that you see back in the western part of the western half of the United States, and remember, these long range model runs that have continually tried to uh, bring these, try to show some sort of change, just have been wrong. I mean, they've been dead wrong, and they remain dead wrong.
Right, right. And if it would, you get a little bit of severe weather or some active weather early next week. I mean, now we're talking about early March. So
Hmm.
that opens the door for that kind of weather as we move into late winter and early spring. So,
By the way, the GFS for Chicago and for Chicago's just kind of Detroit, or just on that model, are just kind of on the edge of the snow. GFS is not overly bullish with the snow development here. The NAM is a bit more bullish in its view on this second low. You got this lead low that comes out here for Tuesday, and of course you see our rain going by. Then you have this gradually expanding area of snow. It's a very narrow band, though, that runs from northeast Kansas on up through northern Illinois and into Indiana. And then the NAM really kind of amplifies that as we go into Wednesday morning. The GFS is a little less bullish. And there's your low up into western New York. And this is where I think, you get into Thursday, you start to get that low starts to deepen in western Lake Ontario. You've got a pretty good gradient and northwest winds blowing from Lake Huron across Lake Erie into western PA down into West Virginia and even into the mountains of western Virginia and western North Carolina. That's why I'm kind of thinking that there might be some fairly decent lake effect snows there come Wednesday night into Thursday in that particular area. And of course, again, from the Adirondacks on up through northern Maine, just lock it in. You'll get what you get. And then you turn colder and drier behind it.
Just to mention, and I've said this over and over, Joe, I'm not a big fan of the intermediate, the 6Z and 18Z runs. I usually like looking at the 0 and 12Z, the primary model runs. And I would suspect that when we get to later tonight and when the 0Z comes out, that, Chicago and Detroit will be a little bit more embedded into that zone
Okay.
of snow as opposed to what the 18Z is showing right now. Just,
Yeah. I didn't get a chance. I was out all day. I didn't even get a chance to look at the 12. I just want to, wrap the weather part of this up tonight. I want to take a look at that pesky polar vortex up in the stratosphere because it's, in my opinion, this is where all the evil this winter lies. And if you take a look here on the map. This is at 84 hours for Friday. It's all wrapped up like a tight little ball over the North Pole. And if you run it through the next 16 days, guess what? 16 days from now, it's still wrapped up like a tight little ball over the North Pole. It just maybe orients itself a little bit more northeast, south, northwest, southeast, ever so slightly. But the bottom line is the polar vortex remains so strong as we go into March, and this is a huge. This I think probably this winter you'll go back and look at it and say, you know what, this is the reason why we had the kind of winter we had. That even though you looked at the fact that there was no El Nino or La Nina and all this other nonsense, that you could run a list a mile long, it's going to come down to the fact that the Arctic polar vortex just locked itself away up in the Arctic regions. You might argue that that's where it belongs if you're not a winter weather lover, but I think this is the primary reason why, and it just kind of overtook everything. Any other factors, it just made no difference. This was too overpowering. Whatever a few signs there were that this thing, it comes, there's a stratospheric warming, all this other stuff, never happened, not to the degree that you needed it to. The NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, there was another winter where hardly a hint of blocking during the primary winter months from December through February. Every once in a while that NAO got down close to neutral. Maybe there were a few moments where it went slightly negative. It was negative in November into the early part of December, and then we never saw it again. And this has been a ringing theme here, except for 2 years ago in March when we had the 4 nor'easters because of all the blocking that developed. It's been absent during the winter months.
I just sent to you, Joe, a graphic JPEG from Weather Trends 360, another very, very great site. If any of you have not seen it, weathertrends360.com, where they actually have a graphic showing the situation regarding the polar vortex. And I don't know if you can pull it up and throw it up on the screen.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm trying to get it right now. You sent it on Messenger?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to, it figures. I'm trying to open Facebook now and it won't open. Well, we'll give it a minute here. Oh, here it comes. Slowly but surely.
Strong symmetrical polar vortex equals cold stuck at North Pole. GFS stratospheric polar vortex structure valid 23 February, showing the potential temperature, Kelvin temperatures, and just showing a diagram showing
Here we
where
go.
the
I got it.
vortex is.
I'm going to bring it up right now. So,
I thought it was rather neat to,
hang on. Here we go. So you can you go ahead and explain this.
well, it's not much to explain except
It's up there.
what we've been talking about now for many, many days. The fact that all the cold is seemingly locked into place over the polar regions because of the vortex. And this, I presume, is based upon, they say the data source is the GFS. So this is primarily a GFS based graphic or model. And just shows you that, all that frigidity is stuck up at the top of the world and has not been able to really ooze on down either into Russia or North America or Asia. It's just stuck up there. It's kind of like, may I use the analogy? It's kind of like a bottle of club soda with the cap tightly in place. They're trying to get the darn cap off before the end of the wintertime season so that we can feel the fizz, so to speak.
Yeah, this is the figure is
Essence.
just to give credit. Figure is by Z.D. Lawrence of stratobserve.com. And the data source is the GFS from nomads, ncep.noaa.gov. Because I always like to give credit where credit is due,
Right.
and that is, as you said, you got it from Weather Trends 360. Just for laughs, Joe, haha. I'm gonna bring up. Let's see if I can get. I haven't. I don't know if I tried to do this. Uh, let's see if we can. I can get this. Hang on. It's plotting its numbers. Chicago right now is 37. I mean, my God, there's no real cold air anywhere.
By the way, Tim Veltman writes that you may have spoken a bit too soon about the fat lady singing, Joe.
Why?
Uh, he said, in fact, he wrote out an explanation as to why he feels that winter is not completely
Oh
and
yeah, no.
totally over.
Tim did send it to me, and Tim. My apologies. I did see it. I just didn't have a chance to because it was it was loaded with data, and I didn't get a chance to sit down and really go through it. I'm just looking at some of the numbers in Alaska right now. Wainwright, Alaska is minus 24, and okay, they need to name towns up here that I can pronounce. Anaktuvuk Pass or Anaktuvuk. You got to be careful there. Anaktuvuk Pass is 20 below with a dew point of 26. It's a little better when you go down south, though. King Salmon Airport is 25, and Anchorage is 19. So that's actually pretty reasonable. Angoon is 34. Yakutat is 28. And now the map's kind of resetting. I guess I zoomed when I should have unzoomed. Oh well. But you get the idea. Now, of course, now there's daylight all the way up there. So, and in another couple of weeks, they'll be on 12-hour days and 12-hour nights with everybody else, and increasing rapidly, as they already increasing rapidly.
Right.
Okay, so let me go to
And if
this.
you've never been to Alaska, I've been to Alaska twice, and I fully agree with what the late painter, the Happy Trees painter Bob Ross, who is seen quite frequently on PBS. I agree totally with what he used to say about Alaska. He said God was having a good day when he made Alaska. If you've never been out there or up there, you should before you depart this world, because it is a glorious, our vast 49 state, and it's a glorious place to go to.
Johnny Quest, Scott Briller, super chat hits tonight. Thank you very much. And there's a few others. I'm trying to find them. So I don't know
Jalen
if
Perry.
I'm sorry. Who?
Jalen Perry.
Um.
Perry.
Oh, Javon Perry. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, guys. I really appreciate it. So that's. Oh, there's one more. Okay, I see. It just came up. Hold on. And hold on. Oh, good Lord. Oh,
Johnny
Javon Perry. Okay, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Um, really, we both appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Let's see. Okay,
And Frank Riccio says Bob Ross. Yes, Bob Ross. I thought he said Bob Rose. Bob Ross was great. And those of you who are in the New York area, and if you have Optimum, Bob Ross will be on tonight and every weeknight at 11:30. Um, and by the way, Joe, another TV note for you and I. I think on Friday of this week they're going to be running the Flintstones episode with Stoney Curtis.
by the way, I just noticed you guys might be able to see this on the bottom of my goatee. There's this black patch. Okay, I didn't do that. I didn't. That actually comes out that way. Just so you know, it just seems really dark on this shot. But I didn't put dye on it just to do something different. That's just kind of how it grows. I have that part of my neck hasn't aged yet.
All right.
I don't know. Uh,
You know,
uh,
when Sonny Fox used to and there's a name that some only those of you of a certain age will remember. Sonny Fox was the host of Just for Fun on Saturday and Wonderama on Sunday. He also had a very noticeable cleft in his chin, and there was a while. I'm Joe. I used to want to try to emulate Sonny Fox. I used to take a pencil and drive the point into my chin
oh, Joseph.
to be like to look like Sonny Fox.
Oh, good God. Oh,
I
that's a
told
bit much, isn't
you
it?
might be interested to know. I told Sonny that direct. I haven't of late, but I would correspond with him back and forth. I met him a couple of times. I told him that, and he had the same reaction.
Yeah.
You were a weird kid, Joe.
Mary Schenkel wants to know, how do they know which year will be an El Nino year or a La Nina year? Well, the El Ninos and La Ninas the phenomena go on. They can start at any time, they can end at any time. Right now, we don't really have much of anything going on. There are hints when you look at the water temperature profile and you see where the water temperatures in the Pacific are cooling, in the equatorial Pacific. You can make the case that we might be on our way to a La Nina. And in fact, I did see a few forecasts indicating that we may be going into a La Nina for the summer. And La Nina summer La Ninas are uh, go hand in hand with active hurricane seasons in the Atlantic. And by active, I mean the total number of storms, not the number of storms that make landfall. Those are two different things here. So just remember that. We've had seasons with big double-digit numbers of storms, but very few of them having impact on the United States. And we've had seasons that haven't produced very much, and then you get that one storm or two storms that make landfall. So I think some people confuse that when you say above normal, they automatically go to, well, that means there's going to be a lot of hurricanes hitting the United States. That isn't necessarily the case. That is going to be dictated by other factors in the shorter term. Where are the troughs? Where are the ridges? How strong is how strong are the trade winds across the Atlantic? How strong are the upper winds? Which what the La Nina does is basically creates an upper air environment that's more favorable for development. When you have an El Nino going on, usually we wind up with strong westerly winds in the upper atmosphere, and that is not conducive uh, for tropical storm development. The 2820 on that 10 millibar map reaver, that's the height. Okay, that's the how high you got to go to get to 10 millibars. I think I think at this level there's a different multiplier. I forgot, because the figure is 2820. So you're going up 30,000 feet, so at least 30,000 feet. So I think there's another multiplier in here when you read that number. I forgot what it is, but that's what the height line is. Okay.
Incidentally, you mentioned about the fact that we may be heading toward a La Nina. WeatherTrends360.com, which, by the way, makes their money. The gentleman who who runs it does long range predictions, and that's why I guess they call it Weather Trends.
Right.
He says that most definitely we are headed for a La Nina, and most definitely that is going to have an impact on the hurricane season. He says that we're going to have at least 20 named storms for this upcoming hurricane season, and the most likely places in the United States where there may be landfalls would be Florida and New England. So
Well, that's
that
interesting.
that's his take on La Nina, and
Trough comes back in the east in the summer and time and into the fall.
I guess that's what he's alluding to. So
We'll see. David Oese wants to know, do you think winter is over for the New Jersey shore? I don't even think winter ever got underway for the New Jersey shore.
yeah, huh. Well, we'll see. As I still say, as Bennett Cerf, who was a regular panelist on What's My Line, said on the very last episode of What's My Line before it went off nationally, I smell six rats. And I don't know, I just seem to think or believe that when we get not to March, but to April, that we're going to get a flip, and that all of a sudden we're going to see a cold and snowy or semi-snowy type of weather pattern, something crazy, something that you wouldn't think of. Maybe we'll call this the winter that was bookended by a big storm in December and a big storm in April, in early April. We'll see. I don't quite think winter is done yet. I have no real basis for saying that scientifically, except to simply say I just got this gut feeling that something is going to happen.
Well, if something's going to happen, that polar vortex has got to start breaking down.
Right.
If it stays, if it stays tightly wrapped up like that going into the month of April, it's hard to imagine how you're going to get, much of a change in the overall pattern, or at least, now you're getting to the point where you're really starting to thread a needle as far as, delivering cold air masses from the north. They start to have less and less punch. So you need some of that colder air, and you need a really, really strong upper air system to kind of create a little bit of do-it-yourself cold air to throw into the mix when you get into the early parts. You start to get into late March, early April. Um, that would, I would think that now with the long range going out 16 days and carrying us almost to March 10th, if we're gonna, if something like that's going to happen as you go into the latter part of March or early April, we're going to have to start seeing signs soon of that polar vortex breaking down. And right now, it's just not there.
And Scott Briller has Jeopardy for the chat board, and I have to disqualify myself because I've seen what the answer is to this. But for the chat board now, what is the Central Park greatest leap day snowfall? In other words, what is the most snow that's ever fallen in Central Park on February 29th?
I have no idea. I don't know, 6 inches.
All right, I know what the answer is.
Well, what is the answer?
It's 1.1 inches.
That's it?
And that's it.
Well, it's once every 4 years.
Right, and that happened in 1968. So you and I, Joe, I don't know if we remember. I don't remember that, but 1968 there was a snowy leap day.
All right. Well, you were with Sister Charles Edwards no, you were probably past
No, not really, not anymore. I was confirmed in May of 1967, so I was done with Sister Charles Edwards by 1968. thankfully.
Vito Spano, I've never heard this rule. When Chicago gets snow, we get it a day later. Not
Really,
in this pattern.
really not this
I've
time.
never heard that. Have you ever heard that?
Well, I know I heard in general
Well,
that
weather systems in Chicago, we get the weather system a day later. That's going to happen.
right,
But as far as snow is concerned, um, it has happened where we've had systems where Chicago has gotten snow, Detroit has gotten snow, Pittsburgh's gotten snow, New York has gotten snow, Boston's gotten snow. Something that's kind of sliding from west to east, crossing to our south. It has a decent moisture field with it, but that's probably not as common as, say, a low that tracks up like this one is, where all the cold air is up, or at least the cold enough air is up around the lower Great Lakes, and not for the I-95 corridor. The pattern here is just all wrong.
right.
Uh, I mean, it's been all wrong for 3 months, and almost 3 months, and it remains all wrong.
Mark Glatfelder says that he has sent you a picture on Messenger. He might have sent me the picture, but I think he sent you the picture,
Hang
Joe,
on.
of the snow squall in Colorado. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Ruthless Goat actually sent me. I saw a video of it. Yeah, he does have a picture. Hang on. Whoa! Here we go. You ready?
Yeah, I'm all set.
This is actually quite cool. I don't know, Mark. Where did you get this from? 'Cause I don't think you went to Colorado today because you weren't feeling well. But take a look at that. I got it up on the screen. I know you're on delay, but brother, is that a wall, a wall cloud, or what? My God, can you see it yet?
I haven't yet seen it. It should come up momentarily.
Yeah, you're on a delay. So
Here it comes. Here, oh my! Look at that.
isn't that insane? And you can see the mountain in the background, of course, and on the other side of that, that's crazy.
Mm.
That's an insane shot. Whoever took that picture, I'd love to give you credit for it. Anyway, it just is amazing here.
That's frightening. That
Oh,
is that's frightening,
yeah,
man.
we've got
Yeah,
those. I wonder, I mean, if we had open visibility where we could see out to the west, with if we had a little bit of height. When we had those snow squalls back earlier in the winter, there were some nice shots of stuff. People got some, shots of the squall coming in across New York City and then coming across Long Island Sound. But that is something to see when you look at it from the standpoint of
wait a minute.
of.
I hear. I'm looking at the picture. I'm hearing something in the background. Dorothy, Dorothy.
Oh, good God! I'll bring a suit that'll take your whole farm. There are laws against dogs that bite. People, that is. Well, I've always said that the Wicked Witch of the West was the real victim in that movie.
Yes.
Right? I mean, a
That's
juvenile. What's that?
the whole basis of the Broadway show Wicked, isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, you've got this juvenile delinquent, hanging around three older men, which right there should like bring alarm bells. Okay. And she kills this woman over her shoes. And they were her sister's shoes, Joe.
right.
That she killed, and they were the only thing that she had left of her dearest departed sister.
Here's the Wizard of Oz in one of those capsule summaries, that you would read about in your TV section of your newspaper. Wizard of Oz, 8 to 10 p.m. TCM. Transported to a surreal landscape, a young girl kills the first person she meets, and then teams up with three strangers to kill her dead.
By the way, so earlier in our wonderful program, to which we have no, me, I have no shame. But if you were here earlier, you may have heard that Timothy Veltman had sent me a message saying that somebody on the chat board was not behaving themselves. That she apparently was using expletives that are not they're usually the kind of expletives you might hear on some street corner somewhere. Well, let me just say, if you're still watching, I don't think that friend requesting me on Facebook is going to get you any kind of result. Okay? So, that makes no sense to me. Although I have this morbid curiosity, I almost want to accept it just for laughs, but I ain't doing that. What are you typing, young man?
I'm just typing something back to my sister. She wanted to know what the term schmongola meant. I used the term schmongola in a message, and she said, "My friend Susan Mitchell has a question for you. She wants to know what does a schmongola mean."
Oh, good
What a great
God.
word, she says.
Well,
I
what does it mean?
Well, it was a term I picked up from a former coworker when I worked for private weather service. The coworker's name was Arnie Rosen, and he used to refer to people who did stupid things as a schmongola. So there you go. There's your
Hang on, delete
definition.
request and block.
Who's the guy on the chat board who was billing himself as Pepperoni Rayo?
Oh, I didn't see that.
It sounds like our old nemesis from who we blocked last week.
Diego?
Yeah, because he did it like 8 or 10 times. Hi, 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 hi,
Yeah,
hi.
well then, Oh, there's Pepperoni Rayo. He's up there now. What's he
Yeah,
doing? Let me see if I can read the deleted message. Hold on.
well, don't
Uh,
deleted
yeah,
message.
no. The message has been deleted off the screen, but I can pull it back up to see it
Yeah,
and view it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Diego. So now he's Pepperoni Rayo.
Oh,
Oh, good God.
I guess he likes me. I
I
should be
suppose
honest, shouldn't I?
well, look, that we're attracting all sorts of persons here is probably testament to just how popular this show is getting. Len says San Diego was 89 today.
Wow.
In Palm Springs, 1 degree short of the nation's high temperature of 90, shared by McAllen, Texas, and Falcon Lake, Texas. Amazing. Oh, boy.
I've not been to San Diego. I was close to San Diego. A couple of years ago, I was in Anaheim, and my wife has a friend who lives in San Diego, and we were going to meet up with him, but he canceled the last minute. So
Reaver 501 Joe wants to know, do you plan to do any instructional videos on astronomy on your YouTube channel?
one of these days, if I ever get around to doing, see, I'm torn right now, Joe, because I'm getting these messages. I still have Windows 7, and I'm getting these messages from Microsoft saying, "Oh, you're taking a big chance if you still have Windows 7. You must change to Windows 10, and if you do change to Windows 10, you should really get a new computer because,
Well, how old is your computer?
huh?
How old is your computer?
6 years old.
Well,
It still works.
yeah, if it still works, then upgrade to 10 on that. But what it would cost you probably to buy the Windows 10 upgrade for another couple of $100, you can get yourself a whole new computer with
Yeah,
with all sorts of capabilities that you'll you know be forced to use as they
yeah.
drag you kicking and screaming into the world of technology.
I thought,
You still got your iPhone. You haven't melted it down yet, right?
no, I have not.
Okay, but you've gotten rid of the flip phone.
I never had a flip phone. I
I,
used to have a I used to have a phone about this big, but that was a long time
but
ago.
what
No,
was the phone you had before you went to the iPhone?
um, it was just a regular cell phone. It was not an iPhone or a smartphone.
Oh, like a
Just a,
jitterbug.
it was just like a flat. No, it wasn't a jitterbug. What are you sending me to the old folk club?
I'm sorry, I could not resist. Okay. After all, your full retirement date for Social Security is a little bit sooner than mine. So,
Yes, yes, I know.
anyhow. All right. So, look, we've actually managed to go a full hour tonight.
Right.
Johnny Quest has got the axes ready for the trolls that are getting on board. Appreciate it, moderators. Thank you very much. Um, I'm okay with you know differing opinions, and I and if the conversation gets a little lively, I'm cool with that. But when you got people that come on and say, all sorts of weird things. Now, what is this? Hold on. Okay, so who's using my name?
Somebody's using your name.
Somebody's using my name.
Really?
Yeah.
In vain?
No, they got an ID with my name on it. Just my full my name.
Uh,
Thanks, Timothy. Appreciate it. Um, somebody says that they hate me. So I mean, what? That I hate myself? Okay, I don't know who this person is, but let's see if I can. Now I'm having fun here. Hold on a second. Um, let's see. Okay, so now that user has been hidden. Okay, now this is me. I'm typing a message now. 1, 2, 3. Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yeah, so you guys can see it's me because I got my face on it. Someone actually you set up. I just hid myself. It says Joe Cioffi was hidden by Joe Cioffi. Oh, and Diego's trolling Reaver. Listen, he he texted me and this has got to stop. Okay, so let's enough. Stian Terstad from up in the North Country in Northwest Europe, in Norway, I believe, if I remember correctly. If I didn't remember correctly, forgive me. But it's always great to see you on board. Keeps us honest about what's going on in Europe. I did happen to see, by the way, that they were forecasting. I don't know if it was for today. I think I saw it over the weekend that they were forecasting some snow for parts of Northern Ireland and England. It was supposed to be overnight, and then all done by morning. So at least they saw a little bit of snow this winter. On the emphasis on a little bit, because Europe is having the same issue with the winter that they've had in Europe is pretty much like what we're what we've been seeing here, which is not very much of one.
right.
So that is just the way it is. Okay, we're done. All right, so let's call it a night. Thanks for being here. Hey, if you have, Stian is from Norway, and I'm always correct. Thank you. I got to remember that. Appreciate it. So don't forget, folks, if you haven't downloaded my free weather app, why not? It's free. So just go to Google Play or the App Store and type in Joe Cioffi or meteorologist Joe Cioffi and add that weather app to your collection of apps on your very smartphone. Even Joe Rayo has done so. Even Joe
Yes.
wakes up to my notifications in the morning. um,
On
and
my, on my wife's iPad, I might
Yes,
add.
also don't forget, he's got a YouTube channel. Okay, it's called Joe Rayo Weather. So if you haven't gone and subscribed to Joe Rayo Weather on YouTube, this is your opportunity to go ahead and subscribe to Joe Rayo Weather on YouTube. Okay, so everybody needs to do that because Joe's closing in on 1,000 subscribers. And unfortunately, we didn't have that one big blizzard that would have probably given you the 1,000 subscribers and given me the 10,000 subscribers that I need. Now we're just going to have to wait for hurricane season to see what that provides.
Yes, indeed. Hope
So,
for a more active summer as opposed to a somewhat inactive winter.
correct. So, everybody have a great night. Thanks for being here. And, Joe, I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
I'll be here.
Okay, good night.